Hello everybody. So this video is entitled MSTR, Bitcoin and miners rebound. Today we had a short trading day, but the trading day was characterized by us being up heavy in the morning. We were up big in the morning, and of course, in a typical Friday end of trading day fashion, it all dropped. I don't do the short-term stuff. I don't follow it, but I recommend Marty Party, and I recommend his stream. And the blue lines never ever survive. These are the liquidation levels of hyper-leveraged traders, very leveraged traders, and it's always like that. Towards the end of a trading day, you make it crash. And so Bitcoin's up in the morning, Bitcoin's up when the market is closed, but Bitcoin's rarely up at the end of a Friday trading day just because of the Binance shenanigans. But it really doesn't matter because fundamentally, as far as I'm concerned, if we look at the beginning of the day, we were up quite nicely, a lot of positivity, a lot of optimism. And yeah, we traded down, a little bit less in MNAV yet again, like was it half a percent lower in MNAV right now? But that's an end of the day phenomenon. That is not, if you average it out over a week, that is not the truth about this stock. That is not the phenomenon. It's just the instant snapshot of the end of Friday trading day. In fact, if you look at the preferred, Stretch opening very strong at almost $98. Stretch almost open at $98. Stretch is slowly getting back to 100, and that rate cut in December 10, that rate cut is really going to help us get back to 100, and we will likely see another raise. By the way, by next week we should likely hear of another raise of Stretch. By the way, so the raise plus the rate cut, that should get us back to 100, and of course, if you look at the other prefers like Strike, for example, Strike, very different behavior from the strategy behavior. Strike, we were up 5.8% at the end of the day, which leads me to believe that, Bitcoin has a bunch of options that expired tonight. Well, I guess they expired an hour ago. Strategy, same thing, a bunch of options that expired an hour ago. And so market makers are doing their shenanigans on both Bitcoin and strategy. And sure enough, so this data is always delayed by more than 2 weeks. Always delayed. I wish we would get that in real time. I guess you have to pay somebody to get it in real time. But we got the data from more than 2 weeks ago, and what did we find? We find that 2 weeks ago we were at the highest level of short interest ever for MSTR stock. Where are we at right now? Are we even higher right now? Are we about the same? Maybe we're about the same. I don't really know. I think given the macro backdrop that we're going to have in December, I think it would be very wise for these shorts to close their shorts. But again, short-term investing is a very different thing than long-term investing. And as far as I'm concerned, today was a pretty darn good day for Bitcoin and strategy. We hit 93,000 in the morning. Let's not forget that, 93,000 in the morning. Now, Bitcoin pure plays, Bitcoin treasuries, that's one aspect of the story. Another aspect of the story today is the miners rebounded hard. Cleanspark was up about 15% in the earlier part of the day. If you look at Cleanspark performance over the past, was it 10 days, a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks? If you look at that performance, we're up 50%, roughly, up 50% in a week and a half. So, turns out, is AI real after all? Yes, turns out AI may be real after all. Mara, of course, a lot of people really, really dislike Mara, but Mara is up also very nicely over the past week. And I want to talk about these two. Of course, I own these two, but one of the reasons I want to talk about these two is because both Mara and Cleanspark discussed how they're going to use modular pods, AI data center pods, talked about the limitations of a like large brick and mortar building, and the timelines to build them with moving at the speed of permitting, which is a very low speed of permitting. And so they both discussed modular AI and how AI can be deployed really quickly after a deal is done, thanks to modular AI system, modular data centers, and modular data center systems. Cleanspark specifically talking about this company called Submer, which makes like ready-use racks and micropods, and you can see these micropods, especially this one right here, micropod. Well, it looks like a mini container. And this is very similar to what we've seen Mara do. We know Mara operates a lot of his mining equipment from containers. Why do you do that? Because the speed to deploy AI is the most important thing, and if they can operate GPUs out of containers or any sort of AI workload or HPC workload out of containers, that's going to be a very big deal. And these companies have experience in deploying these containers fast. And of course, Cleanspark is also up because they're in discussion with hyperscalers. They told us on the call they're in discussion with hyperscalers for their Sandersville facility in Georgia, which is all energized, which is ready to go. And dispatchable compute is inevitably a part of Mara and Cleanspark, because for example, if Cleanspark were to get dispatchable compute, if they were to get an AI HPC workload for a Sandersville site, they would simply move the miners to another site nearby, and you can just shuffle the hardware. And that's the big advantage of this modular system. You can just put the container on a truck, you can move it. That's the big advantage. And lastly, I want to talk about KULR rebounding hard today. KULR up 15% today, but if you look at KULR the past 7 days, it's up 41% over the past 7 days. You may remember me complaining in my Bitcoin videos that KULR was essentially free right now because it was trading at a 0.9 something MNAV. Well, turns out it rebounded to a 1.3 MNAV from a 0.9 something MNAV, because it never made any sense for me that for KULR you were getting the company for free. You see, KULR is this company who converted part of their balance sheet into Bitcoin in the early days of 2025, and now the market is associated it as a Bitcoin company, and so it's sold off. Just like any other Bitcoin treasury company, the market has entirely overlooked that KULR was a company that was able to stand on its own before the Bitcoin strategy. In fact, KULR's Q3 was outstanding. Their revenue growth was 116%. They had guided 100%. I remember that. So they had guided 100, they actually achieved 116% revenue growth. This is a company that, yes, is not money-making just yet. This is the type of company that, say, Cathie Wood would be interested. They are ramping. They're in that kind of dangerous stage where they're ramping the sales. But that's the thing. If you buy it for under the value of a Bitcoin, you get that company for free. You get it essentially for free if you buy it for under the value of a Bitcoin on their balance sheet, because they were very smart and they raised Bitcoin when their MNAV was through the roof at the beginning of 2025. This company is in my view, way more sold off, especially given that they are at the intersection of thermal systems, space batteries, balancing systems, and I suppose robotics. We'll see where their German bionic offering will do. We don't have much information. I think they sold only 30 of them. So for now, it's not that big. But you have space, you have military, and you have balancing system, and you have thermal runaway solutions. These are super high-tech things, super high-tech products, and it seems like they are selected to develop a rugged battery, a high-performance battery for, and it will be their KULR One system, and that's for defense applications. That's for laser defense applications. Another thing is their development of BMS and next-generation batteries, BMS that are designed to work in space, and more importantly, If you look at that, they developed a radiation-resistant battery management system. Now, why is that important? Because if you're going to have a battery in a satellite, you're going to have radiations. And so you need to have it be radiation-resistant. And so as, for example, Musk talks about getting data centers in space, as more and more people talk about putting things in space, you're going to have these very high-performance batteries that are resistant to radiation, that are high-performance, that don't explode, that don't have thermal runaways. That's why they're being selected for drones. That's why they're being selected for military systems, because in these environments, you can't afford your batteries blowing up, just like you can't afford the battery blowing up on a $500 million satellite. And remember, they have their batteries on Mars. They have their batteries on the moon. This is a company that is ramping production of their batteries, but in my view, they're a multi-product company. They're moving towards a product company. They're moving away from being just a NASA services company. And yeah, sure, today you're paying up a little bit for the company because it's a 1.3, so 30% more than the value of a Bitcoin on the balance sheet. But like 10 days ago, this company was free, was essentially free. This company was trading for less than the Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Less than the Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So the market makes absolutely no sense. $3.24 is way too cheap for KULR, especially as they are, kind of at this intersection of two revolutions, Bitcoin and space. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.